The rise of organized labor in the United States. In the mid-1800s, most work in America was done on farms. By 1900, the work had shifted to the factory. Most Americans living in the late 1800s worked 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week, for very little money. There were no laws that protected workers. Children as young as 8 worked. Medical coverage did not exist, and pregnant women were often fired. People who got hurt on the job got nothing. All right, that's the first one. Workers form unions to demand change. Soon, workers realized that they must unite to demand change. Together, they formed unions to bargain with factory owners. Organized labor has brought tremendous positive change to working Americans. Today, many workers enjoy higher wages, better hours, and safer working conditions. Battle between workers and bosses. The battle was clearly drawn between workers and bosses. Each side had their own tools. Workers often used the strike. They would stop working so the company would lose money. They hoped this would make the owners agree to some changes. Most of the time, workers were demanding higher pay and better working conditions. In desperate times, workers sometimes sabotaged equipment or used violence. Tactics used by bosses. Owners had tools of their own. Sometimes they enacted a lockout or a reverse strike. The owners would tell workers not to show up until they agreed to a pay cut. Sometimes they made workers promise to never join a union. Bosses hired strike breakers, called scabs, to take the place of the regular workers during a strike. The striking workers often responded with violence. Before the 1900s, the government never sided with the union. Bosses persuaded the courts to declare a strike illegal. If the strike continued, the participants would be thrown into prison. The government would even be willing to send the army. American Federation of Labor. The next big labor organization was the American Federation of Labor. It was started by Samuel Gompers in 1886. The AFL was a loose grouping of smaller craft unions, such as the Cigar Makers Union and the Hat Makers Union. Every member of the AFL was a skilled worker. Samuel Gompers was born in London in 1850. He came to New York City during the Civil War. He was a very good organizer and speaker. Gompers wanted to keep it simple. He focused on bread and butter issues of higher wages and better working conditions. This helped him maintain the support of the American government and public. By 1900, the number of AFL members swelled to over 500,000. Unions were growing in size and importance. There were over 20,000 strikes in America in the last 20 years of the 19th century. In many cases, workers' demands were completely or partially met. The AFL served as the most important labor organization until the Great Depression.